Support Celtic Warrior workouts and give me a subscribe. Oh, and also support WrestleTalk and give them a subscribe.
Support WrestleTalk!
What is going to happen to NXT in the next few months and post WrestleMania? Because I feel there's a draft in here. I'm Ollie Davis. This is Luke Owen. Welcome to the WrestleTalk podcast. Please have a thumbs up party. Press the thumbs up button. It's the best way to help the performance of this video. It's so easy for you to do. Leave a comment with your 2020 draft predictions. Give us a subscribe. And WrestleTalk Live, March 16th in London. We're going to be doing a live podcast. Me, Luke, Adam Blompier, Laurie Blake, Chopper Pete Quinnell. We'll all have a thumbs up party there.
It's a white boy party.
And then we're going to have a wrestling show showcasing the best wrestling promotions in the UK, some of the best up-and-coming British indie talent, led by new match announcement, this sexy, high-flying three-way WrestleTalk 2019 scholarship winner Callum Newman with a WrestleTalk jacket. Yes. The OGEM. Oh, I've done it again.
Yeah.
I can't say this guy's name. OJMO.
Yeah.
I want to keep saying the OGEMAO.
Or you also say the OMJO or the OJAMAO.
I don't know why I'm struggling so much. Anyway, OJMO is just like one of the best sellers I've ever seen.
His the Rev Pro match, I've actually seen it now that they had on at High Stakes last week. Like that match that he had with ELP is insane, and the match that Will Ospreay had with Zach was just ludicrously good.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah, everyone's going to be talking about him in the next year. And everyone on the British indie scene already is. And Sean Custom.
Look at this handsome man.
He looks taller than the other two guys. He is. That will not stop the flips. Custom brings the flips. All these guys bring the flips. That is going to be a hell of a three-way. And it's how like everyone else has got like frontline match, NGW match, WrestleGate match. This is a WrestleTalk showcase match.
But we're not starting a promotion.
Not starting a promotion.
But this is our match.
Anyway, go to WrestleTalkLive.com. You can get your tickets there. You can come along. We'll just do meet and greets for free.
Oh, fuck.
Because we'll be there. It's like a big WrestleTalk party. But let's get in to the Draft 2020 predictions, because Tom Colohue has said in his most recent video this week that, yes, the plan still is to have a shake-up after WrestleMania.
So is this the draft? Is
Yes.
this going to be like, okay, but my point was, are we going to have a superstar shake-up after Mania and then a draft later in the year?
I would say no. I think that he doesn't go into that, but it seems like you have a draft, like we did back in October when SmackDown went to Fox and Raw got Paul Heyman properly booking everything there. So that was a proper draft where you get that weird robot thing.
Yes.
In the war room between the networks.
Yeah, Pepsi Man.
I think the post-WrestleMania shake-up is like a soft version of that, where, some people just turn up.
Yeah.
And there's no real announcements or concept behind where people are going.
It's a way to have, and it's a very smart way to have, two post-WrestleMania episodes of Raw and SmackDown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you get the post-WrestleMania few debuts there, and then a full shake-up version with, I guess, the SmackDown to Raw trades going on. Anyway, he said that while everything's going pretty well with the rosters and WWE are happy with what they've got in place, a few imbalances have started to appear, and that is chiefly SmackDown has no baby faces because The Miz turned heel. Fiend is like this nebulous, he's a heel and a face.
Yeah.
And Daniel Bryan, he has turned, he's not heel anymore, but he's not fully face either, I would argue.
Yeah.
So they're lacking baby faces, that needs to be fixed. And on Raw, Becky Lynch has beaten all the women.
Yes, which is really evident in the lineup for the Elimination Chamber, because Sarah Logan's in it. So apparently, all you've got to do to qualify for the Elimination Chamber these days is be on the roster.
Or the Riot Squad. It's like a Riot Squad reunion. It's like they looked at the Elimination Chamber and like, oh crap, Charlotte's busy. I think they just wanted to put Charlotte in there. So that's what they've got to fix there. And you're kind of seeing this already. Tom Colohue points out that they've got Shayna Baszler. They've had to bring up her from NXT, really, or sideways rather. It's hard to get the linguistics right now. I'm so used to saying up.
I'd imagine they still call it up.
Yeah. And she's going to be facing Becky Lynch and Charlotte. You know, the two top female stars on Raw, they've beaten everyone, so they're having to go to NXT to face other people because, you know, Charlotte won the Women's Royal Rumble, is facing Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, and I don't think that SmackDown is doing much better because it really feels like they've got no direction for the SmackDown Women's division. I figured they were going to do something with Lacey at WrestleMania because Bayley kind of screwed her to win the title, or to retain the title at the Royal Rumble. So then you build up and you have the big Yay America win at Mania. But apparently they're going to do Naomi instead, which is great because Naomi's awesome. But it just feels like, well, what's next? What do you do with Lacey then? And what's Sasha Banks doing?
I feel like SmackDown on the women's side has a nicer spread. You know, Naomi, Bayley, Sasha Banks, Lacey Evans has really come on leaps and bounds. Then you've got Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville.
Carmella, yeah.
Carmella. You've got but the Raw side, the highs are so much higher. Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and then Asuka, and then everybody else is down here. Yeah. But whereas SmackDown is not as impressive in terms of overness,
in the middle,
but they're just all flanned out here. But yes, so it's since Royal Rumble, which I think is where Raw really, really started to get good. And I've said it the last couple of weeks, we are living through the best weekly wrestling TV period of all time.
It's so good right now.
Raw, AEW, and NXT, week after week. And, you know, I tweeted this out 2 weeks ago, and it topped it this week. Raw wasn't as good, but NXT TakeOver and that AEW show, good God, poor SmackDown. So,
Heyman, the Otis and Mandy stuff is awesome.
Yeah, but Heyman, since the Rumble, has started to utilize Baszler. Riddick Moss just appeared. I know, it is technically a call-up.
What a game changer.
Yeah. Before then, you had Chelsea Green and...
Deonna Purrazzo.
Deonna Purrazzo appear. So it seems like, I reckon Heyman is looking at NXT. He's always been a guy about developing new talent, and he's itching to raid that box of toys.
Yeah, completely. Which is why I think it's very bizarre that the first person you've written down is Keith Lee to SmackDown, because that Keith Lee feels like such a Paul Heyman Raw project.
Yeah, but SmackDown needs people.
Does need its baby faces, I know.
And I think Keith Lee is such a unique style of over that he can go against Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
I mean, not initially. I think there is a lot of money in a Keith Lee Roman Reigns feud based off that Survivor Series interaction.
But there's also money in Keith Brock.
Yep. Keith, Braun Strowman.
Well, this is what I was
eliminated each other at Royal Rumble.
So this is what I was going to say in terms of putting Keith Lee over on SmackDown. Is you also move Lesnar over, because once Lesnar loses the title to Drew, what do you do with Brock on Raw?
Well, he can float, can't he?
But I think you move him over to SmackDown where he's almost got like a new fresh pool of Roman Reigns to fight with. And that way you can do Braun, you can do Roman, you could do Keith Lee, importantly. And I know like Roman and Braun are sort of like old hat feuds at the moment, but they almost feel like they might be kind of new again because they're over on SmackDown, might be able to present it slightly differently. I think moving Brock, because actually that moves him out the title picture on Raw, might be the best move.
I just look at Keith Lee and there's something SmackDown about him. I'm not saying SmackDown in the last 8 months because it's been pretty rubbish, but SmackDown historically, I just feel like, Sasha Banks weirdly also feels SmackDown. It's not a slight. I feel like they would work so well on that brand.
And he could easily walk into SmackDown as a top babyface.
Definitely.
Because they haven't got, at the moment on Raw, it's a stacked old babyface roster. Whereas on SmackDown, there is a open gap for someone to go and walk in and be the number 2 babyface. Because clearly, it's not Kofi anymore. And Kofi was like number 3 at best when he was champion. So Keith has got that spot open for him to walk in and was like, I'm now the number 2 babyface on this brand.
I think Finn Balor stays in NXT.
Yep, I can totally see that.
United, Undisputed Era is one that a lot of people have spoken about, for years, but more so now because Carl and Fish have dropped the tag belts. They've done everything they can do.
It feels like times over.
Yeah, it feels like the only thing left for them is to kind of self-implode. So either you tell the self-implode story in NXT, which would be good, but I don't know if that's what I want more than them just coming up to the main roster.
Yeah, but if you're going to put them over onto SmackDown, then are you not just going to have 4 new heels on an already sort of stacked heel side, and have them sort of feuding with the New Day when you could, I don't know, like, because like you're absolutely right. The Undisputed Era should be called up because there's nothing left for them to do in NXT. They need to have a new crop of people. My first instinct is to put them on Raw and have them going against Seth's group.
Yeah.
But like with Seth, we've actually got a question about this in the mailbag. I feel Seth and Drew as your SummerSlam main events, like on the Raw side of things. So I don't know where you go with the Undisputed Era, but 100% they don't need to be in NXT.
I just think SmackDown is in such need of a injection of
You're absolutely right.
momentum and energy.
Yeah.
And this, but you know, it's a draft. It's not all one-way traffic of NXT up to the main roster. It's also cross-pollination from Raw and SmackDown. But speaking of like people who have nothing really left to do, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano.
I feel like they're NXT lifers
Yeah,
now.
I don't think they're coming up either.
No, I feel like they had their 2 weeks on the main roster when they were part of that, you know, sort of Vince McMahon panic call-up. But I can 100% see Ciampa and Gargano being NXT lifers.
Yeah, yes.
And that's nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think they'd be perfectly happy doing that.
And I don't actually want them to come up to the main roster. Yeah, I love them, but Vince McMahon's perception will be these guys are small.
They're small.
Yeah, and it just won't work. I love them so much, and I was burnt last year in February. Can't believe that was only a year ago.
Yeah, I know.
It's probably a year ago, like to the week.
Yeah, they had the panic call-up.
Yeah. Velveteen Dream.
Yeah, I could see Dream getting his shot, getting his call up.
He's again like someone who feels like he's done all there is to do in NXT, even though he's only had one briefish run with the North American title.
Yeah.
But I don't see him as a NXT champion.
No, and I could see you definitely putting him on SmackDown. Like SmackDown is a really weird beast at the moment because like all the reports where it's going to be this super serious sports-based presentation, but if anything, it's the wackiest show that WWE do. It's like Funhouse. Like it's a whole lot of fun with prizes to be won. So you put Dream over on SmackDown, where he can be full-on Velveteen Dream, and it would just slot right in with all the other wacky stuff that goes on with SmackDown.
Yeah, you wanted Brock and Ronda, MMA legitimacy. Here's a guy with a split personality.
Yep.
Here's a
guy,
Prince cosplayer.
I was going to say, here's a guy who thinks he's a king.
So on the women's side, we've already seen Rhea Ripley. I don't think she gets called up. I just think this is a way the Charlotte feud to give NXT a bump. I mean, crazy. What if Charlotte goes down, wins the NXT title, moves to NXT for 6 months?
I was actually going to say the same thing because the reports last year were that Charlotte was unhappy in WWE, and actually, she said as much because she doesn't feel like she's got a direction at the moment because the focus is all on Becky. So she's not going for championships now. She won the Royal Rumble and she's going for the NXT championship. This feels like it is a purposeful direction to, maybe move her to NXT for 6 months, maybe even a year. Just sort of move her there, Finn Balor it, and just say like, you're now going to go to NXT where you can be the top B down here instead, rather than trying to compete against Becky up on Raw.
And on that, I think Bianca Belair might get a call up.
Yeah, totally.
But this is not what I want to happen, but I think this is the reason it will happen. Becky Lynch needs people to feud with. Belair will come up after WrestleMania and be fed to Lynch in a 2-3 month program.
Yeah, but that's only if Baszler loses. Baszler could win the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania.
Do you think she should?
I think she should.
Yeah.
I think that you could definitely have Baszler win the Raw Women's title.
Yeah.
Because that then gives Becky Lynch something to go for, gives Belair something to go and feud with. If you bring in Ronda back, you can slot her into that role as well. You can essentially kind of rebuild that Raw Women's division.
Yeah.
And that injection of Bianca Belair is a really good call, particularly as well because Montez Ford is also on that brand.
Mm-hmm. Of course, her husband.
Yes.
And my last one here I put, but it seems like it might not happen just because they won the tag titles at TakeOver, the Broserweights, is Matt Riddle to Raw.
He's a total Paul Heyman guy.
Total Paul Heyman guy. I think the Brock Lesnar stuff's a work.
Yeah.
Just the way it's been treated and come out.
Oh, it's a total work.
Yeah, and it's got Paul Heyman written all over it.
Yeah.
So I've got to think that there might be Vince. I actually do think Vince doesn't see anything in him. Otherwise, something would have happened.
He'd have been on the main roster already.
And the Royal Rumble booking.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Like you would have, if Vince actually saw something in him, there would have been a Brock Matt confrontation. Everything else, I think, is a work.
Eliminated in under a minute.
Yeah. So I think there might actually be a bit of a tug of war between Triple H and Paul Heyman over where Riddle goes. He's 34 years old.
Yeah.
You know, that's not... he's a great wrestler, but he's got this sort of youthful vibrancy about him. It's shocking to think he's 34. Not to say that's old, but...
I was going to say I'm 34.
Well, exactly. But for Matt Riddle, who's stoner bro, long hair... Am I 34 years old?
I had to really think about that for a second.
He does feel like a new, fresh talent in his mid-20s. But he's only got like 3-4 years of that. Yeah. He'll be 40 in 6 years.
Yeah, you can't be Michelangelo forever.
Yeah.
Eventually you have to become Donatello.
You have to put him on the main roster soon. Otherwise you are gonna miss the boat. Hopefully not, but the longer you delay it, the more risk you run of it not properly connecting. But yeah, I don't know what really happens there. I think Matt Riddle to Raw. I think Paul Heyman wants him dearly, but he does hold the tag titles with Dunn.
Yeah, and I think we're definitely heading towards Dunn turning on Riddle, and you do a program with them, and maybe like you kind of run that until the SummerSlam period, maybe even like into the Survivor Series period, and you bring Riddle up with a draft, or you bring Riddle up maybe later on in the year.
I think Riddle Brock screams SummerSlam.
Yeah, that's a pretty good shout. Yeah.
So maybe you could do it before then,
or you do it at Survivor Series because Brock and Survivor Series having these sort of like showcase matches.
So the underlying issue of all of this, though, we were looking through the NXT roster before we started to sort of come up with these picks.
And there'll be people screaming this in the comment section.
Yeah.
You're gutting the NXT roster.
We're not saying we want all of these to happen. We're just suggesting possible ones that could and the ones that seem to make most sense to us. But NXT isn't as stacked as I thought it was. I was quite shocked.
And it is one of the criticisms I've seen lobbied against NXT since the TV era of it, is that this roster is now starting to feel, not stale is the wrong word, but I think that's a hyperbolic word, but it is starting to feel like we've seen this. And they're all sort of doing the stuff that we've already seen. Particularly, I've seen a lot of people very down on Ciampa Gargano.
Yeah.
Again, we've seen this before, just with the roles are reversed. I'm actually quite for it. But having this sort of like big call up and forcing NXT to revamp itself and use some of these NXT UK guys and girls that you've got use that as your feeder system to like rebuild. We've seen it with Devlin coming over from NXT UK. He's now part of the NXT brand. There's so much good talent in NXT UK that should be in the NXT system. Ilya, for example, Ilya is being so wasted in NXT UK. You've got one of the best talents you've got in the world, and he's doing nothing. You put him onto NXT UK, and you can really rebuild that. And essentially, what NXT needs, it needs its new class.
Yeah, I was just looking at the NXT UK roster and all the people they've got signed, and it encapsulates all of Europe really, because you've got A-Kid, Alexander Wolf. It's about the same amount as, and men's and women's, the same. Oh no, not the women's, as the NXT roster.
Yeah,
which is
ludicrous.
And it's really done for cynical reasons in the NXT UK. It's to sign up talent to sort of suffocate the British independent wrestling scene
and stop them going to other companies.
Yeah. That NXT UK is where NXT really should be looking to have their new class, because of all the new recruits. The days are gone, I think, of, oh wow, Austin Aries is going to be in the next class, or big names from Ring of Honor or PWG, because they're going to debut on NXT directly, or they're going to go to AEW. But yes, right, let's move on to AEW versus NXT.
Should we do some ratings?
Let's do some ratings. What is it good for? Hopefully, a respectful critical discourse.
Yeah, which is not what you see if you look at the replies to Brian Alvarez's weekly tweets about it is like, if you want to see the worst of wrestling Twitter is to look at those replies.
Shall I have a look? So all he does is tweets.
He just tweets numbers.
The numbers. No opinion.
And there is always just like, oh, we're killing NXT, we're winning the war. Oh, it's not as much as Raw gets. It's always quite bad.
Yeah. It's... Well, there's NXT being super kicked by AEW on the Sammy Guevara, Matt Jackson spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, walk us through the...
So, well, it was a great week for both shows. Both shows up this week. Dynamite averaged 893,000 viewers, which is up 9% from last week and isn't too far off what they got for the whipping episode a couple of weeks back.
I don't think that's... Well, the big looming thing in the background is... Both shows were up against a juggernaut of the Democratic debates.
Which we'll come on to shortly.
Which was actually the best match. Have you seen any of the highlights?
I have not, no.
Screw you, Bloomberg, is the fun thing there. It's a fatal four-way where all the baby faces team up against the heel. It's very cathartic.
So yeah, Dynamite was up 9% from last week. Got a 0.31 in the 18 to 49 demographic, which is up 3% from the prior week, and it finished 5th in the cable TV ratings.
That's amazing.
Which is really good. And NXT was up 5% to 794,000 viewers and got a 0.25 in the 18 to 49 demographic, which is up 4% from last week. Finished 16th in the ratings. In fact, for NXT, aside from the unopposed show that they did on Christmas, it's the highest total viewership that NXT has had since late December.
It's a post-takeover episode.
Mid-December, yeah.
It's a pay-per-view bump, which Raw and SmackDown have managed to convince us all wasn't a thing anymore. But yeah, it is a definite trend for AEW and NXT. Post-pay-per-view, post-takeover, there's a ratings bump.
And AEW won big in the 18 to 49 male demographic. So big night overall. But what was interesting about it is that for the first time, historically, since October, NXT has always won the over 50 category. Like that is their audience. It's this over 50 category. It's this sort of WWE, I grew up with this, I'm going to watch all the products that they put out. But this is the first time that AEW and NXT actually tied. And I think part of that is an older audience being excited for cage matches on TV. But also, as they wrote on Figure 4 Daily, the Democratic debate likely hurts NXT more than AEW, given the debate did a monster rating in people over 50, the category that NXT usually wins. So those over 50s weren't watching wrestling, they were tuning in for the Democratic debate instead.
I think a lot of people were. I really wonder what the AEW viewership would have been if it wasn't for that 20. The Democratic debate's got about 20 million viewers. It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge.
Absolutely huge. But bigger than basketball, almost double the figures of what Raw goes up against with the Monday Night Football stuff. So huge amount of viewers tuning in for that. And it's like AEW at the start of the year had a 940 to 960,000 viewership range. That's what this show should have got. I even think with the cage match, this show should have got a million viewers.
Yep.
And I think maybe without the Democratic debates, they would have done that. Yep. It's only what is that? It's under 10% more viewers that they needed to get over that 1 million mark.
Yep.
But yeah, I think the debates hurt it. But we'll see next week. Go home show next week before Revolution. The show after that will be the post-Revolution show. I believe the show after that is potentially that New York show with Brody Lee's debut. There's the looming spectre of Matt Hardy in there. They've got there's a lot of places they can go for views in this. Yeah. And Matt Hardy, proven ratings draw.
Yeah, I mean, Impact's best ratings were the Matt Hardy-led broken episodes. Like when they essentially gave Matt, like, you do your show, you essentially take over this entire show. Those are the best ratings that Impact did.
And just 2 weeks ago, WWE rewrote all of their plans based on the Matt Hardy segment that drew so many viewers. But yes, again, as always, the best headline is loads of people watched very, very high quality wrestling on a Wednesday night.
Yes, love it. Absolutely love it. Right, take us through your favourite story of the week.
Too many lambs, too many lambs.
It's a shameful thing, lobster head.
So, I wouldn't say this is my favourite story, but it's one that we didn't get a chance to cover in the news and stuff. And it's Sheamus appeared on the bump
Yes.
which is WWE's YouTube show.
Which I'm reliably informed is not Todd Grisham shouting at TNA fans.
And Sheamus was the interviewee, and he revealed that when he came back earlier this year, he wanted to use his old entrance music.
Yeah, the Shameful Thing Lobster Head song.
Which fans love to fill in their own lyrics for.
Too many limes.
Because it's quite incomprehensible. Incomprehensible. Too many limes, too many limes.
I would say every couple of months, me and my friend text that to each other. If we're going shopping and I'm buying limes, I will take a photo of those limes and text it to him and say, I'm buying too many limes.
It's really funny, but it's also a banging song.
It's a banging tune, mate.
I do like, Sheamus has managed to have two actually very good pieces of entrance music, because I also like the dun 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 dun. But yeah, Sheamus wanted his old theme music back. This is the quote. I actually wanted to have my original music back. I pushed for that. And I was denied. I wanted it. It's a shameful thing, lobster head. Or whatever it is. People make up their own. Too many limes, too many limes. But he said the reason WWE denied that, the powers that be, he said, don't know who that is.
Vince.
I brought this to the powers that be, and they basically said they don't remember it.
100% Vince then.
I was told they don't remember this song. They said it was outdated.
Well, it is 10 years ago.
Yeah, but his other tune, I would argue, is more generic Celtic stuff.
Yeah.
It is a shameful thing, lobster head. I thought that would actually, but maybe it would give him a babyface pop coming back with that music.
It does feel quite like a babyface.
And he is a heel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. It's just another example of WWE wrestlers actually voicing minor or larger frustrations with the company. You know, you mentioned Charlotte. We've had Becky Lynch with the pay stuff. And you don't know what's kayfabe, what WWE have actually told their wrestlers to go, you know, be a bit more truthful in the interviews. We're giving you a bit more berth so you can make that, so they're just not all copy and paste segments.
Yeah, well, apparently Naomi had an interview recently where she said that she requested to go to NXT. During that sort of like time when she was off for ages, she was asking, don't send me to either Raw or SmackDown, send me to NXT. Yeah. And I think she'd actually quite enjoy going down there for a bit. I think a lot of wrestlers would be like, it's almost like that's why I said the Charlotte thing earlier. I think for her it'd be like a breath of fresh air to go down again. So, my favourite story of the week is I've watched the first 2 episodes of the Ruthless Aggression documentary series on the WWE Network.
I can't wait. I love, even if it is North Korean propaganda,
Yep.
I love wrestling documentaries.
And I particularly love WWE's wrestling documentaries because they've got such incredible archive footage. And the people that they hire make such really good shows. And to be honest, like, the Ruthless Aggression era is not an era I'm particularly interested in because it was the era that made me stop watching wrestling. I was one of those lapsed fans that tuned out after when the Attitude Era ended.
Because there was the Ruthless Aggression era. That was only on SmackDown.
Well,
it was Raw was just dominated by Triple H.
But Raw was the kickstart of the Ruthless, because that's where Vince McMahon cut the Ruthless Aggression promo, and then Cena kind of sort of opted it for his promo. But it's a really interesting time to look back at it because it is very much like they've positioned this to be like this is when the stars we have now were born because it's got all that OVW footage and it's got interviews with Jim Cornette and stuff like that. So it is very interesting. It's not as good as the Monday Night War series that they did when the network launched, but I wanted to highlight my 4 favourite North Korea propaganda rewriting of history.
Lay them on me.
History is written by the winners and rewritten in this case. The first one is, so the second episode, I actually accidentally watched them out of order. I watched the John Cena episode first and then watched the first episode. But they talk about how Cena was booed. You know, and he was, the fans turned against him, but they quite rightly say that men didn't like him, kids and women did like him, and he shifted a load of merchandise. Like, that all is very true. And they said, going into his WrestleMania match with Triple H, when the crowd were really booing him, but the reason they were really booing him is because everyone in that time really loved Triple H. I was paused on the bench like, Well, that's an interesting way of looking at it, I guess. And then, so they say, oh yeah, well, Triple H was just so beloved by fans that they had to boo John Cena, which is why they were against him. But the following year, when he headlined against Shawn Michaels, that turned the fans around. And then from then on, John Cena was cheered by everyone.
What?
Yeah, they really do position it as like, so he got booed by Triple H, he got booed against Triple H, but once he beat Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, that turned the tide.
Come on.
It's a very, very funny way of phrasing it. My other favorite, this is in the first episode, is that it's around the invasion. They talk about, you know, we bought all this WCW talent, didn't really know what we're going to do with it, but we were going to launch WCW Nitro. Now it's going to take over Raw, and SmackDown would become the WWF show, and we'd create our own little inter-competition. And then we had the show in Tacoma, the famous show in Tacoma, which was headlined by Buff Bagwell and Booker T for the WCW Championship, which the crowd turned on. Absolutely, the crowd turned on it, and they did present it as this is Nitro. This is WCW, we have taken over Raw, and this is what we're doing. But the way that this documentary says is like, the crowd turned against it, and WCW was never heard from again. That was the start of it. Like, that was the start of the invasion storyline that went through until Survivor Series that year.
It's just, and you know, you're putting on a WCW match in front of the fans that you've taught for 5 years hate WCW.
Yeah.
And you expect them to cheer and not crap on it?
Yeah, they just, and it's weird because they don't talk about the invasion pay-per-view, despite the fact there is the biggest non-WrestleMania pay-per-view they've ever done. They just pretend like that Tacoma match was the end of the invasion angle.
That's weird.
But my other favorite, and this is the last one I'll bring up because this one really made me laugh, is they talk about how, man, we went through a really rough period because we lost Rock. Rock went to Hollywood. So like losing Rock, that's bad enough.
Yeah.
We also lost Austin.
Two of your biggest stars of all time.
The two biggest stars they had, they lost. And you know what? Ratings really went down, house show attendance really went down, merchandise really went down. But Vince McMahon is a genius. Vince McMahon made a change, and that change was dropping the F and turning it to WWE, and all the problems were solved. And attendance was back up, merchandise was fine, the ratings flew back up, and everything was grand.
You are kidding me.
That's pretty much how they position it. They changed the name. It was Vince McMahon's choice, and that's what turned the tide.
No. Good grief.
I know. As pandas going like, no, it was us. We made you change.
Yeah, just in case you don't know the story, the World Wildlife Fund, who have been in a legal battle with WWF at that point for ages, well, it's WWFE, that was the agreed thing, World Wrestling Federation Entertainment. But Vince McMahon just decided to ignore that and called it WWF. And the actual WWF were like, stop doing it.
Yeah. The agreement was, you are allowed to say World Wrestling Federation, but you cannot say WWF because that's our trademark. We own those 3 letters in concurrency as a name. So they were like, okay, yeah, cool. We'll just call it the World Wrestling Federation. And then just kept saying WWF in everything.
It's such a Vince McMahon way to do things.
Yeah.
Just trailblaze until you're legally stopped from doing it. Well, that's ridiculous.
But I cannot recommend you watch it enough. It's a fascinating documentary series anyway. The John Cena episode is really good, and the first episode is really good as well. I'm really enjoying the series.
How long is it? 10 episodes like the Monday Night Wars, or is it shorter?
I don't know, because they're doing it week by week.
Oh, okay.
Like they did with the Monday Night War one you get in. So it's, I don't know what like the next few episodes are, but the John Cena one is interesting because it's nothing you haven't heard before. But it is like all the prototype OVW footage they've got.
It's all in one place.
Yeah, it's all really nice.
That's nice. Before we get on to the Patreon mailbag, another reminder, folks, WrestleTalkLive.com. Go over to there, get your tickets for Monday, March 16th. We're doing a wrestling show, not a wrestling promotion. And this is our match that we just announced earlier. It is Callum Newman versus the OJMO versus Sean Custom in a WrestleTalk Showcase 3-way. It's going to be flippy.
Oh, yeah. We've also announced the WrestleGate match that's going to be on is Rampage Brown versus Umino for the title. It's going to be a really, really great night of wrestling. We know some of the other matches that are yet to be announced.
They're sexy.
And they're really good.
And yeah, we'll be doing a live podcast beforehand. So come over and watch all that. Let's get into the mailbag.
Indeed. If you want to submit a question to the mailbag, all you've got to do is become one of our awesome pledge hammers on Patreon. Patreon at any dollar amount and leave your comment in the community section labeled mailbag. Do not email me. I will just lose it. This first one comes in from Chris Thorne, who says, this is more of a question for Luke since Ollie isn't a mark. Do you think the Undisputed Era should turn face before breaking up? They're definitely easy to cheer as heels, but I think they have a lot to offer the tag division without being in the title picture. But they've done everything there is to do 2 times over.
Yes, yeah, that is a problem. I used to love Red Dragon as a sort of face team. They were sort of a badass face team. Adam Cole, that really does eventually have Shawn Michaels' babyface written over him. Roddy, another great babyface. They're all so good individually. But I think they should just go up to the main roster as a heel act and tell a heel story up there. 2 years down the line, that's when you turn them face.
Yeah,
and you can fracture people off.
You don't want to almost like Shield this, where you had like the Shield had their heel run, then they turned them babyface and then broke them up 3 months later. You want to turn them babyface and then have a long run as them with a group. But yeah, you can do that on the main roster. Okay, well, this is interesting. So last week we said this was from Bobo Jacobo, but he does clarify here. He says, hi, Luke, and not so virgin oil. Oil Ollie. Get it? It's an olive oil joke. I'm typing this right after hearing my mailbag question where I predicted you pronounced my name incorrectly. I do want to specify. He didn't spell it phonetically. He essentially set us up to fail there. When you pronounced it in English, it's actually supposed to be in Spanish. It's pronounced Bobo Jacobo.
Jacobo.
With more emphasis on the co. So Bobo Jacobo. 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 See, my name is Jacob, or Jacob maybe. And my girlfriend, who is from Mexico, showed me this Mexican hard rock band called Molotov. They have a song called, I can't say that, which roughly translates to, that doesn't make you stupid, Jacob. I know my name is basically self-deprecating as it calls me stupid Jacob, but it rolls off the tongue and most Americans have no idea what it actually means. Most English don't know what it means either. With that out of the way, my question is for Luke. Would you rather buy $150 or euro equivalent, pounds, pair of jogging bottoms once, or have to try on jeans before you buy them for the rest of your life? Try on jeans, that's an easy question.
And probably the better thing you should try the jeans on.
And the only reason I don't do it is because I'm lazy. And I've got no time for clothes shopping. I've got my one pair of jeans, they fit me. In probably, a year's time, I might have to replace these jeans. Then maybe I'll do that. P.S. I expect a lot of sarcastic banter from me in the future. Just, none of it serious. I truly respect and appreciate everything you do.
Oh, thank you very much.
Frank Botello, hey lads, no question, but after listening to the Magazine Show podcast with the Oscar talk, I just want to say I do agree with everything Luke said about the Oscars. I agree with the cynical talk on why Parasite won over 1917, which was the favourite to win. However, Parasite is the closest thing to a perfect movie, almost as good as Sonic, and did deserve to win. No one had a problem or raised an eyebrow in it winning, just joy and happiness. With that said, the reason why I like the Oscars is why I predict winners like wrestling pay-per-views, like which actor not only gave a great performance, but knows board members, like Laura Dern, played a character that has never given an Oscar to Renee Zellweger. Or throws Oscar after parties every year like Elton John. These type of things influence my predictions and win at the Oscar prediction party with my friends. Here's to more great movies being recognised or not.
That's good. Yeah, like you look at the political backstage manoeuvring behind the Oscars as well.
Yeah.
That is fun. I never really thought about it like that.
No, I mean, it's very clear for the Golden Globes because literally the studios buy those nominations. But yeah, I think that's a lot of fun.
I saw Parasite over the weekend. I thought it was very good, but that's it.
I got dibs. My best friend, brother, and I have been huge wrestling fans since 1986, and this weekend's NXT TakeOver Portland will be my first live show. I've taken 2 signs, and one of them is a lovingly hand-painted support WrestleTalk sign with a WrestleTalk logo, and the other is the BUS and dibs are NXT. I want to send pictures so you can keep an eye out for them. Where shall I send them to? Well, he sent them to us on Twitter. I think we featured them on our social media this week.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
To be your first ever live wrestling show. What a
show.
crowd you were.
Sean Dunn, hey guys, crazy prediction for AEW Revolution. Brandy turns on Cody.
No.
Brandy begins her rise to power in AEW.
No.
Also, Dark Order capture Luchasaurus and make him Dark Lucha, or Luchasaurus is the exalted one. Do you have any crazy predictions for a Revolution?
No, I don't actually. Oh, well, apart from, Matt Hardy wouldn't be able to turn up. It's like, unless they won't overrun until past midnight, because technically the 1st of March is when he could appear.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll run a video promo for him.
Yeah, that'll do like a big tease for just with that laugh. Yeah. Chris Gardner, hey guys, but just listening to the Elimination Chamber 2014 review. Insert shameless plug for the Patreon.
Shameful.
I was wondering, what is the biggest death spot on a show? For me, it's got to be trying to follow Rock and Hogan at Mania.
I thought you meant like when Sammy Guevara leapt into the Matt Jackson super kick for death.
Because we were talking about it with the AJ Lee and Cameron. Like that match was designed to fail because they had to follow the Shield Wyatts.
It's hard to pick one off the top of my head. Was it Triple H Randy Orton after Taker and Michaels?
That's what I was just looking for because it was WrestleMania 25, wasn't it?
That was a huge mistake.
Oh no, they had John Cena, Big Show, and Edge in the triple threat, and then Triple H Randy Orton. And that Triple H Randy Orton match is effing boring.
Yeah, and because everyone was emotionally trained by Taker Michaels there.
Yeah. And totally like Rock and Hogan should have headlined WrestleMania X8. Like that is beyond obvious at this point. Mr. Mini Donuts. Hello to everyone at WrestleTalk, except for Randy, and hope you're all having a big one.
Big one.
My question is, who do you think on the WWE roster, including NXT, has the potential to be the next wrestler to break into the mainstream? Like John Cena, The Rock, and Stone Cold Hogan. For my money, it's Matt Riddle. I thought it could have been The Fiend, but then Hell in a Cell happened. Yeah. I don't think The Fiend could have been a mainstream star.
I disagree. I think he was already starting to cross over into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really felt like he could be a breakout star just because he was ticking so many boxes. But yeah, you're right. Hell in a Cell really has killed him. I don't think he's recovered. Matt Riddle. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I think Keith Lee is someone you could really because like he's like a spectacle figure. He's also a really good-looking dude. He's got charisma out the wazoo. He could be an absolute top star in that company and really be like magazine covers, films, all that jazz. Really think it could be him. Alex Davey, well, it happened. It will be 4 years near SummerSlam time that I started watching WrestleTalk, and I'm now a proud pledgehammer. Not really sure why it took me for so long, but at least I'm here now. There are several reasons why I love WrestleTalk. Firstly, of course, it's a lovely time with the boys. Goes without saying, really. Secondly, the chemistry between the presenters, especially Luke and Ollie, make everything about pro wrestling, even the duller parts, very listenable. Finally, because I studied politics at uni, I love listening and finding out what goes on in the background of the industry, and because Ollie is completely right in his obsession with it, business. Please give me more of that sweet politics viewing figures profit chat. So interesting to me. Anyway, no question included. Just wanted to say hello from here in Yorkshire. And thank you for the near 4 years I've watched and listened to WrestleTalk. You guys are the most consistent podcast on the interweb. Thank you. I love you. Goodbye.
And that's all we aim to be. Not the best, but just the most consistent in uploads. I feel like we're back on the consistency wagon.
Completely.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I love most about the mailbag as well? It's always questions from podcast listeners.
Yeah.
The best ones. Nicholas Walton, what if we're meant to see the terrible punch guy? Sorry, what if we were meant to see the terrible punch guy from the Dark Order? What if Dustin Rhodes is the exalted one? I know this isn't true, but what if it was? What if AEW management anticipated the internet would pick up on this and decided to use it as a storytelling device?
Yeah, well, the Raven example is very, very, like, what you've described is what they've done with Raven on this week's episode, which really is stunning. I don't think it is the case with the previous one because you're essentially drawing attention to wrestling not being real. You're opening up that debate.
Well, no, the argument they're making is that this guy was purposefully missing
pulling
him.
the punches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it, no.
Tom Delbs, hey dude, and Plumpy. I don't know who that is.
Yeah,
never heard of it.
Blumpy.
Oh, Blumpy A?
Blumpy A.
Oh, okay. Anyhow, could you see the Otis storyline ending in a Tucker heel turn? Heavy Machinery go on a tear, destroying everyone they face, as they find out who it was that find out who texted Otis. Eventually, it's found out that Tucker asked Dolph to because he thought Otis was too distracted by Mandy. This leads to a WrestleMania match where Otis finally beats Tucker and we get the Mania 8 Elizabeth Savage spot. Much love from New Zealand.
I don't hate it. I actually think it's quite a good storyline, but, way too early in Heavy Machinery's run to do that.
I actually disagree. I think that Otis is already breaking out from that group, like from that team. And so you can just ride this momentum now. Reveal that it was Tucker that sent Dolph in his place.
It feels like an Enzo Big Cass situation to me, where I'm not invested enough in the Tucker-Otis relationship.
Yes, true.
To care about that turn yet.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Flaming Live. I've had many debates on crowd chants and people saying, I bought a ticket, I can say and do whatever I want, but I feel there are things you can and cannot do. I'm sure fans around certain people will police themselves, i.e. can't start Nazi chants, but you can call a match ball S-word. 2 questions. What do you think are the rules of crowd chants? And 2, do you think that fans should be more respectful like in New Japan?
I'll answer 2 first. That's a cultural thing. Japanese fans don't actually make that much noise because they're appreciating the wrestling. It's fascinating as a cultural difference, but I don't think that contributes to I always think a hot crowd can bring so much more to a match.
And that's really changed over the years in New Japan as sort of like as wrestling, the Western style of wrestling has sort of like really influenced Japanese wrestling and their wrestling crowds. So where like wrestling crowds used to be like silent during matches with polite applause, they are now quite loud and they will do chants and they will really get into sort of the drama of the matches, which I think has only heightened New Japan matches more.
Yeah. And on number 1, the rules of crowd chants. Yeah, just Progress has got their "don't be a dick" thing, and so don't say anything actually nasty like homophobic, racism, misogynistic. Don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, transphobia.
But the rest of it will kind of self-police itself because a chant has to be more than one person.
Yeah.
So it's up to the rest of the crowd whether it's good enough. Like free market. It's free market capitalism in its purest sense, a chant getting over.
Drew Porter says, hey guys, I was just wondering, with Elimination Chamber coming up, which is personally my favourite WWE stipulation, but my favourite of all time is Ultimate X, which Impact used to do phenomenally. So my question is, what's your favourite stipulation and why?
Ladders.
TLC.
Is it you as well?
Oh, TLC was always mine. Like TLC matches used to get me legit excited.
Hell in a Cell as well, but that's been really overbooked. Yeah.
Callum, in December, I used to watch one TV show. In December, I decided to watch one TV show each month. In December, I watched Lost. January, it was The Office, the US version. February, it was The Good Place. I just wanted to know what I should watch next. Also, what's your opinions on the shows above?
Wow, you stormed through a lot of stuff. Lost was really the first proper TV show I ever got into, and is a really historically important moment in actually TV programs where they've made. But I hate it. I hate it with every fibre of my being, just the way they never had plans for anything. I love The Office US. I'm watching that currently. I haven't finished it yet. Good Place. Yeah, I haven't finished that either. You have.
I have. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, really like it. I love seeing Chidi pop up in other things now. Oh, it's Chidi!
So Lost, the first season of that started before I went to university, I think. Or maybe it was in my first year of university that Lost came out. Or maybe my second year. Either way, I remember getting obsessed with that first season and being like, wow, this is really, really cool. And then I watched the first episode of Series 2 and be like, oh, this show has no direction because they're just asking more questions, not answering any of the ones we've already set up. And I just completely fell out with it.
Yeah.
I think the US Office is okay. And I think The Good Place is as close to a perfect television show as you're going to get.
What should they watch next?
Twilight Zone.
Parks and Rec, if you haven't.
Parks and Rec.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Marmaduke. Sorry. Hello, WrestleTalk. I have a question for you. I heard in one of your latest podcasts that wrestlers like the Undisputed Era, Lee, Bianca, and Rhea should go to Raw or SmackDown, which is interesting because that's what today's topic is. But is this the right move to do if they want to establish NXT as a third brand? If they, example, go in the next 2 to 3 months, I don't think NXT can be the same quality as it is right now. In my opinion, NXT should be treated as the other brands in the draft. Wrestlers come to their brand and some of the names will leave for the other brands. Thank you for your work. Support WrestleTalk.
Yeah, totally agree. That's the way to do it, actually. We were talking about NXT potentially being gutted. Move those underutilized Raw SmackDown stars to NXT.
Yeah.
Refresh them. You've now got a territory system at your disposal where you can move people around to freshen up their gimmicks.
Completely. Nathan Barnes, hey guys, with Elimination Chamber approaching next month and your recent review of the 2014 edition dropping on Patreon in the last few days, I've been thinking about how WWE's big marquee gimmick matches, namely the Chamber, Survivor Series and Royal Rumble, could play a more collective role in determining the top contender matches at WrestleMania. Now he goes into quite a big, I've had to shorten this down, I'm very sorry Nathan, but essentially he points out Survivor Series means nothing, but he suggests the winning team in Survivor Series qualifies for the Elimination Chamber, so they make up the 5, and they go against that brand's champion inside the chamber.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So that gives Survivor Series stakes.
Oh, I love that.
I
I've never
really like it
thought
as
of
well.
that.
Yeah. He says this would serve to make the Royal Rumble winner's choice of champion even more interesting. They could either pick a champion they know will still hold the belt at Mania, or run the risk of picking a champion who may lose the belt to one of the other 5 competitors.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
You've effectively made Survivor Series through to Mania. Like you've extended the build. That's a great idea.
That's what he says here.
Great
I think
idea.
the run of huge marquee matches from November through to WrestleMania has more stakes and interconnectivity, which would make them more engaging and allow for booking of better feuds and stipulations. Yeah. He also adds, really enjoyed seeing the channel and community grow over the years, and you're killing it in more and more these days. Long may it continue. Nathan, that is an ace idea. Love it. David McKinnon, why people don't stop attacks. It's not perfect, but here's my logic from when I was younger that I still hang on to. Wrestlers have a schedule, or schedule if you're American. Example, Edge addresses the WWE Universe. That's his schedule for that day. If that's at the start of the show, you know you don't need to be there. Sorry, if that's at the start of the show, you know you don't need to be there for it, and if it's at the end of the show, you know you can leave early. Also means people that show up late know they're not on until the main event. Also helps with why people show up early. I see Seth has a promo, I'll show up early to deal with him.
Yeah, it doesn't work. But you know, whatever helps you make sense of the inconsistencies.
Ked, what's up, WrestleTalk? With this year's Mania being pirate themed and next year's being Hollywood, what ridiculous theme would you give WrestleMania 38?
Jurassic Park.
I didn't think you were going to go there. But do you know what my thought was? Future.
Space.
Yeah, exactly, like future sci-fi.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Ryan Penn, if you could get a ticket to any show or event, what would you want a ticket to?
Should we do it at the same time?
Yep.
3, 2, 1.
All
Royal
in.
Rumble. Oh. I thought we were going to say Royal Rumble.
Well, if it's a future event, then yeah. But if like a past event,
I see.
being a part of that all-in crowd would have been
you're
amazing.
right.
But if I could pick any
ECW
WWE
One Night Stand.
Oh, yeah, good shout. Yeah, if I could pick any current WWE show to go to, it would definitely be the Rumble. That guy who wants to support. Hello there, you lovely and ever-expanding WrestleTalk crew. Do you think that AEW not doing a show over WrestleMania weekend is a good or a bad thing? Have a nice conversation and great weekend. P.S. Where did Chopper learn those sweet, sweet moves?
Dance Chopper.
I don't think it's... I think it's actually the smart thing to do. If they were to do it, they would instantly be criticized for trying to capitalize on WWE's popularity. In the same way that if WWE or NXT tried to run a show in Chicago over All Out weekend, they would be criticized for trying to capitalize on AEW's popularity. So I think actually just keeping them separate, I think AEW should invite more companies to run shows around that All Out weekend and make it like wrestling. Because that's what WWE were trying to shut down. There was a period a couple of years ago when WWE wanted WrestleMania to be the only show on in a weekend, and they were asking venues to not book wrestling shows in a certain radius because they didn't want it to be this big wrestling carnival. I think AEW should 100% embrace that. A cheeky pint with the boys, Leroy. Hi, Luke and Ollie. Thank you for the belated engagement. Congratulations last week. Still not married, but it is my fiance's birthday this week, so many cheeky pints will be had. My question is, when you live stream WrestleMania this year, will you go all out and dress as pirates?
Probably not. It's a long show,
Yeah.
and cheap costumes are itchy and not that breathable.
Austin Tusty, hey guys, with all the title matches for Mania seeming to be in place, what do you think will be the best use for Seth? Do you think they will keep up the Owens and Joe thing until Mania or something new? Personally, and I cannot believe how much I'm going to agree with this, Austin.
No.
I think renewing his feud with Triple H would be cool. Triple H doesn't have anything for Mania at the moment either. Seth could go over, and then after that, Triple H could use there's always a plan B line where he used with Seth, turn on the Shield, and set up Seth versus Buddy Murphy.
I don't like it. I think Seth and Buddy needs to be together for a lot longer. I'm cool with not having a Triple H match at Mania.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind not having a 25-minute lumbering match on the show.
With a 15-minute entrance. Jobber JJ, hello Swap Nation and WrestleTalk crew. Finally got to listen to your Survivor Series 97 podcast you did for Patreon. Luke did a fantastic job on gathering all that information. It deserves 5 stars.
Yeah.
You talked about Brett asking Bischoff to delay the move to WCW to finish up with the WWF. Watching a few of the Nitros, they obviously talk about the screw job. The next night they have a ton of Canadian flags, they sing the national anthem in heel fashion, and next week sign Rick Rude, they bury Shawn and Brett, and they call Brett a knockout kind of guy. So my question is, after the screw job, why didn't WCW ask Brett to start on the original date? P.S. It's amazing how in both WCW and WWF his career ended with screw jobs. Have a thumbs up party. Simply, they couldn't. there was a contractual thing. He could not start until that contract had finished. That's why WWF's rewritten history of he would have shown up the next night on Nitro is bogus.
Yeah.
Because it couldn't have happened.
And they could have just played the big money move, let's do it anyway, but they had just lost the other WWF versus WCW court case.
Yeah. Dylan Tyrrell Reeve. Hey guys, I'm back again after a 2-week hiatus from switching jobs, but Dylan Tyrrell Reeve, aka Dylan from Cork, or whatever the Rebel Swagster is back. People from Cork will understand that last one. I'm writing this no more than 15 minutes after I finished my great wrestling class with Irish promotion Phoenix Wrestling. I was wondering, did you guys ever consider becoming a pro wrestler when you were younger, or do any training?
Every single day. I can't believe this now. When I was a teenager, between the ages of like, I don't know, 11 to 15, I would do 150 sit-ups a day.
Wow.
Looking back, they weren't right. But I wasn't actually doing sit-ups. And then I would eat 8 rounds of peanut butter sandwiches.
Wow.
So I thought I needed to bulk up and get bigger. And I didn't know anything about nutrition. The internet I didn't know how it worked. So yeah, my whole childhood I wanted to be a wrestler. And then I tried it when I was 25 and I hit my head and it scared me and I'm never going to do it again.
And you couldn't get the international right.
Yes, yeah.
You told me that story that you got into the headlock and you couldn't remember the next bit of it. So you were just like, I'm just really wrenching in that headlock.
Yeah, and I thought I'll get over with the character. And I was like, I'm the headlock master. 6 months before I even started doing it.
I always wanted to be a wrestler. Did a lot of backyard wrestling because that was the cool thing to do in the early 2000s and sort of like the late 90s, early 2000s. And I've got a very bad back because of it, because I did it all unprotected and was not trained, like a lot of backyard wrestlers. Anyway, Cody Rose, is there any chance of getting an ad-free version of the audio podcast on Patreon?
No. Yeah, it's too difficult to do.
And also, it's only like one ad in there. And Jonathan Hedman, which is the better Adam and the Ant? Which is better, Adam and the Ant or solo Adam Ant? Also, which version of Ant Rap is better, the version with or without the harpsichord?
Jonathan Hedman! This is some deep Adam and the Ants lore.
Yeah.
I love Adam and the Ants. Like, top 5 of all time for me.
This is a question for you then, my man.
I would say Adam Ant solo.
Give us some recommendations for solo
Goody
Ants.
Two Shoes.
Mm-hmm. Is it an album or is it a?
That is.
Well, my Adam and the Ants knowledge is not that big.
My Adam and the Ant. I was obsessed with him as a teenager again. So I am super behind it. He actually released a solo album like 5-6 years ago. It was not that bad. He's a genius. It's a shame that his sort of addiction issues got the better of him. He's not dead or anything, but he's very creatively crazy. But Ant Rap with the harpsichord.
Because I knew this question was coming up, I intended to listen to some Adam and the Ants so I could give some, some feedback onto this.
I'm going to listen to Adam and the Ants all day now.
But disappointingly, I just listened to Nirvana the entire way in. Samad Ali, this is our last question. Hey guys, I think AEW Revolution is going to be one of the best wrestling shows ever in the modern era, storyline-wise.
Wow.
I'm more excited about this show than I was for NXT TakeOver Portland, but remember, they aren't competition. The reason I'm so excited for this show is because every match feels big time and has had so much build and hype around it because each feud has had great build and storyline behind it, which has been continuously spinning. I don't know what match I'm most excited for. Cody versus MJF, Moxley versus Jericho, Bucks versus Omega and Page, Sammy versus Darby, Dustin versus Hager. Every one of these matches feels like such a big deal and I can't wait to see how they play out. Do you guys agree that AEW Revolution is one of the best built up to AEW pay-per-views they've ever done? Every feud has a great storyline behind it and it makes the matches even more exciting. I can't wait. I've already bought the pay-per-view and 29th of February cannot come quickly enough. I don't think I've ever been as excited about a wrestling pay-per-view as I have for this one.
I'm so happy for you, Sam and Ali, that you're into AEW this much. And I'm right there with you. As you were saying it, top to bottom, I cannot think of a show that has been this well built, ever.
Yeah.
Even like the Wrestle Kingdoms. There's a few matches on there where you're like...
Yeah. And it's not a slight against what NXT and WWE are doing. And I don't think this is mostly NXT's fault. It's just that I think, particularly on the main roster, someone pointed this out quite recently. Now, Raw has got one show between Super Showdown and Elimination Chamber. So effectively, they've got to build 3 shows at the same time, which really stifles a lot of the storylines they're trying to do. And Laurie and Pete have been saying the big problem with NXT Portland was they had to do Worlds Collide, which kind of stopped all the build they were doing for Portland. Whereas AEW, they've just got the one show to focus on. So they can build, they've been building from Full Gear to Revolution. They'll build from Revolution to All Out, to Double or Nothing, from Double or Nothing to All Out.
Well, I would actually Full Gear through to the end of 2019. I wouldn't count.
No.
But everything since the start of this year for Revolution has really been exceptional, particularly the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, was that I think the build should have been from Full Gear through to Revolution, but that Full Gear through to the end of the year, as you said, I don't think was... It's basically been the January reset has really, really helped to build for Revolution.
And it's remarkable because I always thought wrestling promotions, ideally, every 4 to 6 weeks needed to run a big show. And AEW has completely changed my mind on that. I thought I much prefer it. But thank you ever so much, everyone who submitted a question. Go over to WrestleTalk's Patreon page and become a pledge hammer yourself to not only send in questions for the mailbag here, but also loads of loads of exclusive content.
There's years worth. There's like 3 years worth of exclusive Patreon podcasts that range from like 3 to 4 hours each.
Yep, that's us diving into classic pay-per-view reviews, us getting drunk and talking about stuff. Loads of stuff there. Plus, you can get shout-outs on the show in the WrestleTalk news as well. But for now, please click the videos that have just appeared on the desk to catch up with the latest awesome WrestleTalk things. And this button, which will take you to Pledge Ham Patreon. I've been Ollie Davis, this has been Luke Owen, and that was wrestling.